James. For England.
For England, Alec.
Hey guys, it's clear that the Bond franchise is something viewers are very passionate about, and it's easy to see why. It's nice to watch something classic not be remade, but live on, beating a slightly wobbly but iconic pulse for over 50 years. With Craig's final outing as 007 on the horizon, I wanted to take a gander at the era of my second favorite James Bond, Pierce Brosnan, and compare what I consider his two best films in the franchise, Goldeneye and Tomorrow Never Dies. 2 films, 7 categories, break out the shaker and let's do this. Goldeneye follows Bond tracking the satellite being used by Russian Colonel Ourumov, on whom Bond wants to take revenge for the death of his partner, 006. With the help of Russian hacker Natalia, Bond discovers that 006 is still alive and is now working for Moscow. As Bond stories go, this is perfectly serviceable, but that's all it is. I didn't feel that sense of urgency, the desire to figure out what was coming next, or why the satellite was so important. Tomorrow Never Dies has more going for it plot-wise. Media mogul and Steve Jobs stunt double Elliot Carver uses a stealth boat and a satellite disruptor to feed faulty intelligence to the British and the Chinese, hoping to start a war between them to boost his ratings. Looking at the film now, it's almost prophetic how much misinformation can warp politics, but on its own, it's an entertaining look at media and war. Just by shifting the type of world domination, we get a really engaging story, and some of the dialogue is just fantastic.
I'll have reached and influenced more people than anyone in the history of this planet, save God himself. And the best he ever managed was a Sermon on the Mount.
As I explained in my first Bond video, there are many layers in portraying 007, and one of my favorites is a sense of coldness that shows up from time to time. You do not want to be around Bond when he's in one of those moods. It's been fairly consistent from Connery to Craig, and it's something I think Brosnan did the best. The icy glare, the remorseless voice, and Tomorrow Never Dies is chock full of these moments.
Wait, I'm just a professional doing a job.
Me too.
Whew. And it makes sense, as this is a somewhat tormented Bond, at least in the first half. He has to deal with the uncomfortable task of getting information from an ex, then the rush of lust and possibly love that is reawakened, then swift heartbreak when she is killed, followed by guilt because he's partly to blame. That's a lot for a man to take in 48 hours, no matter how many zeros are in his name, and it makes for a fascinating character. The thing is, it's like the first half has James dealing with this crisis, and the second half he straps in and gets to work, and the transition is as smooth as sandpaper. Goldeneye's Bond is also well conceived, so hell-bent on revenge he becomes careless. It's reminiscent of the characterization in Quantum of Solace, and that's actually a compliment. And I really like the scene between M and Bond. It's established quickly with razor-sharp dialogue that they both have a personal distaste for each other, yet rely on each other for the good of the job. This is where the mother/unruly son relationship was established, and it's one of the best things the modern Bond ever offered us.
Bond? Come back alive.
While it doesn't peak like Tomorrow Never Dies, the characterization is more consistent in here, and it doesn't help that in T&D, Bond's bow tie may as well have a squeaky toy inside of it. Okay, is Xenia Onatopp a Bond girl or a villain? Villains is the next category in this video, so how do I decide? Okay, well, what is more of her main purpose in the film? To be a threat, or to be sexy? Goldeneye is lucky to have Xenia as a Bond girl because if you rewatch this film, you may discover that Natalia is kind of annoying. She's no Nintendo 64 Natalia, I won't go that far. But despite the fierceness the script tries to give her character, the actress doesn't offer much more than wide-eyed expressions. Natalia comes across more like a nuisance than anything. As over-the-top Onatopp is, and boy is she, she's still entertaining, and the sauna scene is iconic. In T&D, the Bond girls fall into the 2 classic roles, one who shows up briefly and dies, and one who can go toe-to-toe with Bond. And here, there's some of the best versions of these archetypes. Being an ex-lover, Paris brings a nostalgic, longing sexuality to these scenes, and Wei Lin is a badass. Michelle Yeoh performs many of her own stunts, she makes the action look real and physically taxing, and it's nice to see a Bond girl who can bring beauty without sacrificing her combat abilities. She's a bit like a female James Bond, but without actually being one because who the fuck wants that? Wait, people want that? Seriously? Does anyone actually think these female remakes are anything but lazy producers' dispassionate way to make money off feminist trends without putting any work or originality or faith into the product? Original female-driven movies can be brilliant, and often are. You don't prove girls can do it as good as the boys by stealing their favorite toys. I doubt most women even want this. Ladies, please, back me up in the comments on this, because a female Bond is like doing a male remake of Little Woman. It's so stupid. Wait, wasn't I doing a review? Oh, yeah. Anyway, 2 great Bond girls beat Vicky Vibrators, so tomorrow gets the point. Sorry, fellas. Sean Bean as 006 is one of the best cast Bond villains in the franchise. He's got the perfect look and voice for a 00 agent, yet Bean brings an underlying darkness to the character even at the beginning. With just glances, you know he's no James Bond. He's a little off, and it works well for the story.
Finish the job, James. Blow them all to hell.
The problem is, the main villain for most of the film is Aramov, and he's a bit of a bore. However, what Goldeneye does have plenty of is my all-time favorite Bond henchman, the most English Russian on the face of the earth. Say it with me now. Boris! 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 I love this guy. He's got the quirky, rapid-fire delivery of many other 90s supporting characters, and along with the pen-twirling, colorful outfit, and infamous catchphrase, he's a perfect scene stealer.
Boris. Boris!
What? I thought I'd post it on the internet, no?
In Tomorrow Never Dies, we essentially get Boris if he were the head honcho. True, there's a hacker already in the mix, but Boris and Elliot Carver in particular feel very similar. Not just in their appearance, but in the complete confidence and giddy satisfaction they display. They hardly ever feel threatened, even though neither could take Elmo in a physical fight. Jonathan Pryce plays the role with so much relish, I couldn't help but laugh every time he was on screen. And I mean that in the good way.
Temper the bridge. Bond is dead.
Delicious.
Delicious. And holy hell does he do a good job with his mannerisms. Unlike most Bond villains who usually sit on their hands in secret lairs like bored hermits, Carver soaks up the spotlight. He's always planning, creating, and promoting, making him more of an impact in the final boss fight. His German henchman is cool, and it's worth noting that when the actor auditioned, he was told to sell himself in 10 words. His response? I am big. I am bad. I am German. And let's not forget Dr. Kaufman, the expert marksman, a character so memorable and a scene so well written, I wish he had gotten more screen time. Both films offer plenty in the villains department, but there's one character who tipped the scales.
I am invincible!
Yes you are, Boris. Yes you are. Goldeneye opens with one of the best set pieces in the series, wherein Bond and 006 infiltrate a dam to detonate a facility. And infiltrate is really the best word. They sneak through vents, slip silently from room to room, and even knock out a guard mid-poop.
Beg your pardon? Forgot to knock.
Dude, not cool. There's a rhythm to their process, which even without the witty rapport, makes it clear that these two have been partners for a long time. The way 007 bypasses the guards elegantly tightropes that line between tense and comedic, and it all ends with a justified bang. It's the perfect set piece. And that's almost a problem, because every set piece after it doesn't quite hit that high. The tank scene is a blast and the finale is decent, but none feel elegantly stitched together like the intro. Tomorrow Never Dies starts out a little sloppy, but the action only improves from that point on. And what I especially enjoy is the amount of variety. There are 2 chase sequences in the film, and both are complete flip sides to each other. One has the freedom of driving a car with a remote, but takes place in a cramped parking garage, and the other covers a lot of ground, but the characters are handcuffed to each other. We also get some tense moments where Bond is trapped and has to outthink or outmaneuver his way to safety, and the finale which focuses more on cover shooting and mobility. It's varied, it's exciting, and it gets the point. The biggest problem... Okay, second biggest problem with Tomorrow Never Dies is its palette. There seems to be no consideration for tone with the cinematography, and the lighting is downright awful in parts. The daytime scenes are bland, and the night scenes are too dark to decipher half the time. Goldeneye is dark gray throughout, but it's a nice dark gray, like a charcoal suit. The shot composition actually feels planned, and there's a crisp kind of quality to the lighting, costumes, and sets. It's sexy. The music is pretty interesting because Tomorrow Never Dies goes old school, while Goldeneye's score features sparse electronic music, and I think I prefer it. Those echoing notes set a nice slinky mood, and the score appropriately erupts when it's time for action. As far as theme songs, Sheryl Crow's number for Tomorrow Never Dies is fine. Definition the middle ground. But Goldeneye's theme, composed by half of U2 and performed by Tina Turner, is a strong contender for the best in the series. It does a nice job blending classic, operatic vocals with modern instrumentation. Also, an aspect of any Bond song people should acknowledge more is how it transitions from the intro action scene into the sequence and then again into the next scene. When the transition is jarring, there's a moment of confusion because we're being given different moods too rapidly and it's awkward. You may not think it, but you'll feel it when it happens. Ugh. 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 Goldeneye does it right. An explosion in the mountains followed by 4 thumping notes. Thumbs up to it and the rest of its presentation. While the point of this video is to discuss which movie is better, it's important to consider how each functions solely as a Bond film. Tomorrow Never Dies does put up a good fight, especially in terms of gadgets. There are 2 remote-controlled devices, a phone that's essentially R2-D2, and a rather swanky controller for the satellite disruptor. On top of all of this, stealth boat. Come on, stealth boat. However, Goldeneye not only carries the spy theme better with the aesthetics and characters I mentioned earlier, but it did something Tomorrow kind of forgot to do, and that's take us to interesting locales. For the most part, Tomorrow Never Dies is all stairwells, railings, and rooms. Remember, this is not necessarily a bad thing for a film, but it detracts from the Bondness, as it were. Goldeneye gives us a dam, a jungle, a casino, and while these aren't as exotic as other entries, they include the scene where James Bond laser watches a hole in a luxury train before it explodes. A train he has previously shot with a Soviet tank he stole in broad daylight. Yeah, that's a point for Goldeneye. Points tallied up. Which is the better movie? Just kidding, it's freaking Goldeneye. Look, I love Tomorrow Never Dies, more than any critic apparently, but even I'll admit it barely edged out a couple of these points. I still call it a great Bond film, but Goldeneye is one of the greats. It brought a fresh face, character dynamics, and soundtrack to the table, yet retained everything we want from 007. And above all else, something I feel a lot of spy films are neglecting is that it's cool as hell.
For England, James?
No.